Hi, my name is Terry. Welcome to Ulogers TV. My username across the internet is surpassing Google, and I'm a legitimate literate. And on the topic at hand, there's a lot to say, but this is not a live stream, so I'll be limited in how much I can say. I have only 30 minutes long of memory as well on the device I'm using, so I'm going to have to cut short my conversation, but this is something we'll discuss on further in a follow-up live stream on the same topic. The topic at hand is will Chinese input towards Akoin. Akoin is a digital currency product by Akon, aiming at creating an Africa with one coin. Will Chinese input hamper the attainment of that possibility for the project Akoin, the possibility of creating a project that brings Africa to the world, indispensably to the world? There's a lot to say on this. There's a lot of context as well. You can gain additional context for this subject on previous videos. I'm doing a series, an entire series surrounding the topic of Akoin and Akon City, and so far I've done 4 videos preceding this one. So underneath in the description you'll find the other videos there. Please check those videos out. I covered it, what the Akoin project is about. I covered the digital currency aspect of it, the blockchain aspect, and I looked at the various projects comprising of the Akoin ecosystem, including Akon City, which is a physical venture starting out in Senegal. Then I went on to discuss its potential in terms of bringing Africa to the world. It does have that potential, but there also exists the possibility that it doesn't accomplish that by grand measure. For the most part, it will manage to bring Africa to the world, but if you're tackling grand measure of Africa to the world, considering the size of that project, it has so much potency to that effect where at the very outset it targets that, bringing about beautiful disruption. Now, take note of the word or the phrase beautiful disruption. According to me, that is what it should target as opposed to disruption. So a lot to discuss on this. I have to create a small basis. We will get into the nitty-gritty of the conversation at hand gradually. I'm also, I'm considering those who don't know anything about the Akon project, giving them a basis for understanding this conversation, assuming they did not watch previous videos. So basically Akoin is, I'll just recap that quickly, is not only a digital currency. For the most part, people are mostly aware of the digital currency when it comes to digital currency, when it comes to Bitcoin, Ethereum. For the most part, people are familiar with Bitcoin, for example, as a digital currency, without oblivious to the existence of an underlying technology, which is the blockchain, oblivious to the dynamics of the token, unknown to them that there are like only 21 million possible tokens in circulation, which is at the base of the enterprise model behind the distribution of Bitcoin. Anyway, these are some of the things unknown to the public, which is important to know in this case, so as to understand, what I'll be saying later on. So, Akoin is a digital currency, a blockchain-based project. Let's make it big. Now, being a blockchain-based project, it will have a digital currency. The name of the digital currency is Akoin. Now, being blockchain-based, it will allow for the development of various applications. It will invite the development of applications, especially those stemming from Africa. It will also look to empower them, and it will have a marketplace of tools that empowers entrepreneurs, innovators, programmers, etc., stemming from Africa. It will also have something called an atomic swap, so allowing for a seamless transition between fiat or other digital currencies and Akoin, meaning you'll be able to spend Akoin seamlessly without even knowing that you are spending Akoin. Then there's also the physical venture, Akon City, under the ecosystem, aiming to become an ecotourism center and a hub that incites innovation that stems from Africa, a smart city. Now, all these different layers of Akoin will make use of the Akoin digital currency, already sparking a measure of value for the digital currency by virtue of its utility. So this established, you see that it's broad. It's broader than just the digital currency. There's a digital currency, which is the medium of behind the economy, but that digital currency needs an ecosystem to garner its value or to be perceived as a token of value. This comes about by virtue of its use cases. Okay, what can you use Akoin for? Besides the financial services aspect of the token, which is pertinent for traders, there's also the utilities, other utilities, besides financial services. Perhaps, used as, for example, you want to avail of a service from Akon City, you're visiting Akon City. Perhaps you'll be able to spend Akoin there. You want to avail of a feature on an app that stems from the Akoin ecosystem, and you're told to pay in Akoin. That starts to constitute value. How many people are making use of this digital currency? Can predict value for the token. So now that we've established that it's bigger than just the digital currency, it's an entire ecosystem that we refer to when we say Akoin. Having established this, now we can look at China and the impact of their input in the ecosystem. Now, let's broaden this. It has nothing exactly to do with China. It can be, now, broader than China, we're talking of the entire globe outside of Africa. Can their input impact positively or negatively the ability for Akoin to indispensably take Africa to the world? This is what we will be discussing. The reason that we're talking China at this stage is it's a special case study when it comes to the world of digital currency and the internet at large. We know, that's why I'm choosing China in this case. We know that China has its own internet, and barriered from the rest of the world to an extent. They try to curb their masses, play out their own curriculums, their own system, and try to enclose them from the rest of the world. These things impacts the dynamics of the system, their money, their economy, their evolution. There are pros and cons, of course, but this is established. So China may not be able or capable of viewing YouTube, for example, which is known to the rest of the world. They may have to they have their own version of YouTube, and if they want to access the general YouTube, they may need to use a VPN. So that's one reason I'm highlighting them, looking at their interaction with the internet. Now, there's another aspect, interaction with blockchain technology. Blockchain technology is sort of like Internet 3.0, sort of, because it's an advancement from traditional internet that we have, that we're known to have, which is mostly centralized. Blockchain is taking the levels up a notch and creating decentralized data storage. So we have like Internet 3.0. Now, looking at China and their interaction with Internet 3.0, same factors apply. Even though it's decentralized in nature, there's still efforts to curb their interaction with this systems, these new systems, digital currency and all that. This is seen in history, some of the ventures. We won't go into history. Anyway, the internet at large, some websites are inaccessible to the China audience, whether it's a decentralized based interface or website. That's the case. I speak with testimonies regarding this. I'm usually on a social media platform that has many Chinese, and they have difficulty accessing the regular sites that I would access, that is blockchain based. Now, looking that aside, this has called for a measure of improvisation in their interactions, in their movements. The whole enclosed theme I've not been there, but they have a way which is obvious when you enter into the world of blockchain, of moving together. They have communities and they stay in touch and in tune. And also they have a language that appears to encode things, encrypt things to an extent, even underlyingly. For example, not many people will pay attention or invest as much attention to where they translate what is said in the Indian and the Chinese groups. I would, because I want to surmount those barriers. Now, when you talk of the chats, messengers available, they move in a unit, they communicate. Once there's a news of something, they move together. If they have to pool resources together, they do it as well. And language is a factor because it barriers others from taking the next step, except a few. So WeChat, for example, it's hard for the rest of the world to gain access into WeChat except they have a verified account from China. Now, this being established, I'm trying to pinpoint why I'm using China as a case study, but in the grand scheme of things, I'm talking of the world at large. Now, having established this, another thing to highlight is, and why I'm pinpointing China, is because they do have interest in digital currency. Maybe they're among the top, investors and all that when it comes to digital currency. Like I said, they work in a group. They are ready for return on investment, so they are ready to invest. And they have a force because they move together in the form of a group. So that said, that is why I'm using them as a case study in this regard. That is what I've realized, that they have a real movement when it comes to investing in digital currencies. I created a startup as well that is blockchain based, and even though the format of it was African based, it was mostly the Chinese that picked interest in getting the digital currency. And that will give you insight into where we're headed. Now, if you're not solid in the enterprise model backing your project, especially at the early stages, you will lose touch. Something that originally was meant to bring Africa to the world can easily sway, especially when the token behind it becomes public, and the token parameters behind the token is like state-based. They can quickly gather, pool resources and gather and have massive influence on the platform to where they begin to dominate the platform. There's nothing wrong with that, but this is a learning process. This is a Ulog, so I'm just in a state of ponder and evolution, creating food for thought so that you can gain insight and have your own narrative evolve as well as a result of this video. So there's a lot to learn, and it's very beautiful, and that is my approach when it comes to building. I'm out to beautifully disrupt. I'm not looking to disrupt. And if I was to give suggestions for Akoin, it will be that of a legitimate illiterate with the same paradigms, beautifully disrupt. So for Akoin, we will talk about Akon. Let's quickly wrap up, the China and how they interact with the internet, with the world of digital currency as a case study. But in broad scheme of things, we are talking of every other nation outside of Africa. No, we're not saying that it's their intention to sway a vision related to bringing Africa to the world. Sometimes this happens obliviously. They want to participate and interact with the internet like the rest of the world, and obliviously, if they are able to adjust the projects, but that's not their fault in reality. Even if it's preempted, or even in cases where it's preempted, assuming that's the case, it's still not their fault. That's why we're going to tackle the project Akoin and the evolution of your project model and the solidity and substance of it, to where it becomes unshakable yet dynamic, in the way it's iterated. Anyway, so that's aside. So we've established some things about China, in this case, their interaction with the internet. I think that's something to take note of, because if I'm building a project for Africa, for example, I will also take note of the interaction of Africans, the audience I'm looking to serve, primarily their interaction with the internet. And it's different. It's different from China, it's different from the rest of the world. It's a case study on its own. So Akoin, if you are listening to this, Akon, I'm sure you have been in Africa, have insight. Take time to evolve that aspect in itself, so that you build projects that take cognizance primarily of Africans, if that's what you want to accomplish. Looking at Akoin, it says one Africa, one coin. So that is the model. That's the enterprise model, one Africa, one coin. But in the evolution of that model, it's important that you take cognizance of or do another study of Africans and their interaction with the internet. Now that we've established, that some of these things, another thing to establish is with digital currencies, can you prevent input from others? To a large extent, the answer is no. So that will not be the aim of Akoin. That shouldn't be the aim. Again, we're tackling this with the premise of beautifully disruptive. So we're not assuming I'm to build, I will play out down-to-earth paradigms, African paradigms, not code is law, not one as seen with many blockchain technologies in existence that is predictive in nature, in a bid to curb reaction, predictive of humans, like humans as people that will look to usurp the rewards in a bid to create code that prevents that. That's not my approach. My approach is playing out down-to-earth paradigms or African paradigms and code that into the algorithms, the features, the enterprise model, then propagate that using your application. So instead of enforcing it, you play out a curriculum using activities that people are familiar with. They carry out these activities using your application, engaging in every aspect of your ecosystem, but underlyingly there's a mentality adjustment, that inculcates in them new ways, which is African, complements those that they already have and steers evolution for them. That's where I see real growth. That's where I see Africa to the world, not in terms of like being apprehensive of others or creating laws, fixed laws that hampers the possibility of others. Yes, that will be disruptive, but that's not my style. My style is one of beautiful disruption. So it is established. One thing that is established is you cannot prevent inputs, especially when you have a digital currency out there. To an extent, you can manage to do so at the outset, where your project is still private, it's closed source. Most blockchain projects are open source eventually, but at the outset, that is the key moment, establishing the vision within the dream. Is this very strongly about Africa to the world? Is this, a project that is a hybrid of Africa to the world and return on investment, or return on investment for the sake of reinvesting in Africa? And all those things need to be defined, and to an extent it appears to be defined when you look at Akoin.com. Now, where that is establishing at the very outset whether you want to take Africa to the world indispensably, that is to grand measures, or you're okay with a measure of success in that regard before you let go. You'll understand what I mean. What I'm trying to say is that the outset of the project is very important. Each tiny nuance or details encoded in the algorithms, that's where power lies. Integrating in those underlying aspects of your project the down-to-earth paradigms or African system. I mentioned in previous video that vote system, those aren't African in reality, especially those that are state-based. African systems are a bit different. Trade by barter is still obtainable today, even within the money sphere. I'm hoping that Akoin manages to propagate these paradigms instead of end up replaying popular paradigms that are not very African. Where that is the case, the project will end up becoming generic as external input comes in, and it will lose its potency in terms of bringing Africa to the world. Like the example I gave earlier, because you cannot stop input. Once the digital currency is on an exchange, there are external factors. People will speculate and just, without even knowledge of what Akoin is about, just want to trade, make arbitrary gains, short-term gains, some long-term gains, but with return on investments in mind. These are things you can't curb on. The only aspect of this project that you can curb input just a bit is at the outset, where you are shaping the model. So at the outset, how solid is Akon in the ethics and the paradigms that will shape up this project? You can lose your say in that regard where you allow for too much input, say a partnership at the outset, let's say the alpha stage of development. Then you won't be able to shape your project as much as you want, to where it's very potent in bringing Africa to the world, because you will have reservedness due to the fact that there are other players because of a partnership. So how can you curb that? It's like me, I struggle with building my projects at the outset. I know that later on I can partner, but at the outset I have to be part of the stories and histories in the makeup of the alpha stage of development. This hampers on my ability to raise funds to go into partnership, but for a good cause, because I'm taking cognizance of, I'm aware of the potential of losing the vision within the dream, the potency in terms of world adjustment that I want to accomplish for real. I may lose that, especially at the early stage. So this is a very important stage. Then when the paradigms are set, the blockchain you're using has those paradigms encoded, so that even if there are applications to build on them, whether they're from China, whether they're from USA, UK, the African or down-to-earth paradigms will have to play through them, and users of the applications will be inculcated with an additional mentality which is African to complement whatever they have. That's where there's power, and I'm hoping I can speak to Akon on stuff like this. I know that somehow I'll manage to reach him with these videos, so I'm doing an entire series. When the series are complete, I'll look to reach him. So as for input from China, from the West, it's unstoppable. You're talking of a decentralized, ecosystem. Decentralized in the sense that once it becomes public, announced as decentralized, perhaps the code for it becomes open source, then others will have the opportunity of having a say. It's very possible that over time there's distribution of the token, and if the token is a token that carries influence within the ecosystem, even if Akon had a large bulk of the token, over time as distribution spreads, others will begin to have influence across the ecosystem by virtue of the tokens that they hold. This is not something you can stop. So why not have a different approach than what is public, and not look to stop it? Just look to create something that is just indispensable, because it returns value to humans as opposed to generic innovations that take value away from humans and distribute it among superficial things like money, like applications, like talent, luxury, stuff like that. Why not play out something that is African and fresh? Play out an ecosystem that allows humans to maintain at least a measure of their value. Even if it's state-based, make it dynamic to where the Boolean that captures intention, decision-making, let's say a like or a dislike, is more buoyant in what it can capture. So it takes into account other aspects of the human, more so than just vote. These are the systems that are at play with most innovations in the world. On Facebook you have a like or a dislike. It's a Boolean. It doesn't capture much, but a lot is decision-making, governance is reliant on that. That is what is also used as analysis when it comes to further enhancing the technology. But a vote is weak, and when you look at the world as a whole, the governance models surrounds voting, and in most cases underlyingly the vote is stake-based. While it appears on the surface like one person one vote, we all know that money can come into play, and that can sway many votes, and underlyingly it's stake-based. There's a lot to learn from the world, and there's a lot to pick from Africa, the down-to-earth spaces of Africa, but you need to grasp those spaces. Most of us, or Africans, many are shy of these things, because the standards have become those of the West, those of the rest of the world. Measure of success is that, as opposed to perhaps real human growth. Like Akon will say, faith, in a supreme being. That's his measure of success. There are many other ways to measure success. That is still obtainable in Africa today, but it's relegated in some cases into redundancy. We need to use all these projects to re-wake all that, and a way to do that is with Akoin, implementing all these paradigms in the parameters that shapes the coin distribution. For example, how about a coin that rewards effort? In Africa, of effort. It's not always about quality. Sometimes it's about grind. That same content that someone else created with 4G internet, an African may have had to climb a tree. Then when he finally gets a signal, perhaps there's a power cut in between, and the publication just comes out scrappy. and then by world standards you measure it just solely based on its superficial look. How about a system that rewards effort, a system that rewards past deeds? These are not in existence today. Even though there have been many innovations at play on blockchain, on the blockchain technology, where are the African-based innovations? Yes, there are many innovations that carry the name of Africa, but do they play down to African paradigms? Do they know African paradigms? Do they know Africa? It's not exactly about having lived in Africa or being of African descent, for you to know what Africa is. There are many factors for this. Even the curriculums in Africa are not African, so over generations pass, and most of those oral things, they are oral, hard to preserve and stuff like that. Anyway, that aside, input-wise, there are pros and cons. China, they are very good when it comes to investing, raising the token value. Even though they don't have any say in the project, they can just combine and trade. Many digital currency raise in value as a result of investors from China. Many of them look for return on investments, and they usually engage when it comes to purchasing tokens. I don't know exactly if they speculate, but like I mentioned in previous videos, there are different types of traders. There are some that pay, that's want short-term gains. There are some that base their decision on project longevity and the vision within projects, and altogether it's established they play a role in the digital currency world at large, especially many tokens that you see that rise in value. They do have inputs in creating demanding the tokens, buying the tokens and stuff like that. So this is not something that can be stopped. Input wise, it all is reliant on Akon and whoever is behind the project. The earlier part of the project evolution is very important. If you don't grab that, make it solid, there's a possibility that it sways away from the vision potency wise, and it will still manage to accomplish Africa to the world, but not ground measures, because over time it will become a return on investment based economy, and people will lose their loyalty and just focus on return on investment, especially when the token price starts going up. Will you have inculcated the mentality of Akoin as representing Africa, or will people have shifted away in loyalty and focus on the Akoin currency and just want to replay hand-to-mouthism, which is popular around the globe, where someone just wants to satisfy the basic need and not look long-term? So there's a lot Akon can do. The physical venture is very important because it's important that there's a hub that emanates generation fixtures, look to emanate solution bringers. So that physical venture is important, but it's very important to be conscious about accomplishing these things. The physical hub itself can turn into an ecotourism center and very soon lose out on being African. Now, there's nothing wrong with the reason we're discussing Africa now is because it's just a very beautiful topic of discussion in these times, in the scheme of things. Looking at innovation, technological advancement, it's attaining a limit. After blockchain, there will be artificial intelligence, human clones, and that's the end. It will be about Africa, and perhaps people will leave outer space and return to the down-to-earth spaces of Africa. That's why we discuss these things now. The memory is over. Thank you very much for being here. I'll stop the video here. My name is Terry. My email contact is underneath in the description. Please subscribe to this YouTube channel. Stay awesome. Your boy Terry.